You woke? Time to get up. Hello, welcome to Thought Your Woke Those Speed Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin. Hope you guys are having a terrific day. Hey, guys, I'm sorry it's been a while. I have been away. Life catches up with you. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. So, back to this. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe because there are more shows coming. Okay, Juneteenth. Let's talk about this one for a second. That's a popular holiday for African Americans, for black people like myself. Me as a descendant of people who were captured and taken, kidnapped from their homeland, brought here in chains to work the farms for our white American citizens and their ancestors. I am a descendant of those people that helped them make a profit, helped this country prosper and become the country it is today. That did so with our blood, sweat, and tears while we made absolutely nothing off of that. So, what is Juneteenth? Juneteenth is the beginning of our prosperity. It's the beginning of our growth in this country. And there was a lot of other things that got in the way, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to give a brief synopsis of Juneteenth. Juneteenth is the celebration of the ending of slavery as Texas became the official last southern state to be emancipated on June 19th, 1865. On June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger ordered the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation and the executive order by Abraham Lincoln ending the slavery in the rebellious southern states, known as the Confederacy. Now, this particular document, known as the Emancipation Proclamation, was given at the end of the Gettysburg Address, one of the most bloodiest battles of the Civil War, and that was in 1863, so it was 2 years earlier. The people of Galveston, Texas became the official last people in the South to be emancipated 71 days, about 2.5 months after the surrender of Confederate General Lee, and 26 days and 3.5 weeks after the dismantling of the Texas Confederate government. Slavery continued in states who stayed in the Union. Kentucky, Missouri, West Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland were all slave states. Excuse me. By the end of the war, only Delaware and Kentucky were still slave-holding states, and slavery also existed on Indian reservations. On December 6, 1865, the 13th Amendment was ratified by Georgia and was the 27th state to do so. Only Kentucky and Delaware resisted ratifying the amendment. However, the necessary threshold had been met and slavery was abolished in the United States on December 18, 1865. The last slaves would be freed on the Indian reservations 2 years later. Though slavery had been abolished legally everywhere, Delaware would not officially abolish slavery until 1901. Kentucky would hold out until 1976. So, why am I reading that? You say, why are you reading all of this? We already know this. Juneteenth happened last week, yada, yada, yada. But here's the thing. Again, this is a celebration of black people. Celebration of black freedom, black culture, everything you can think of. Because this was a moment of freedom for us. Just like July 4th is this nation's freedom. Juneteenth is our freedom, because when the original founders, believed in, they said all men are created equal, they didn't exactly create black men or think of black men the same way when they wrote that law. But June 19th means that was actually realized for at least the beginning of it, and it was finally truly realized on December 18th. So people say, why you don't celebrate December 18th? As you can see, there's some fallacies there, because Delaware didn't ratify it until 1901. Kentucky didn't ratify it until 1976. So you can say it wasn't actually completed yet, right? You can say, well, then celebrate on for 1976. No, we're going to celebrate it for June 19th, and that's fine. But in fact, it's been historically celebrated ever since June 1966, June 19th, 1966, so or 1866, sorry, 1866. So we celebrated that holiday unofficially for more than 100 years, and it was officially made a holiday in 2021 by President Biden. Now that, of course, has fired off the MAGA movement. And in fact, I'm about to play you a sad video because this is why I've got to bring this up, and that's why I was kind of talking about this earlier. That there needs to be an understanding of culture in the United States. When I talk about black culture, that's why I've told you about Juneteenth. When I talk about black culture, you realize it is unique to most minorities in the United States, most other ethnic groups in the United States. Ours is different than the white people who came over on the Mayflower, who came here looking for an opportunity and a chance to grow. And it's different than the people who immigrate now who follow those same white people with that same dream. It's different in that. Now, where we find commonality among people who are black or brown in the world is they are being rejected. Even when they come to the United States, they're being rejected because of the color of their skin, because of their language, because of what some things people like our wonderful past presidents have said about Africa and South America and Asia and places like that, right? So they're being rejected for those reasons. So that's something we hold in common with them, because even though we have been freed from slavery, we dealt with 100 years of Jim Crow laws, and there is still a lot of effects from those Jim Crows today that discriminate against black men. But the difference is why we are here. Those differences sometimes cause clashes. Now, that also comes with an ignorance about our culture. That's why I want you to watch this video.
Was recently on a podcast, The Food Community. Now, I know Icon. I don't know him personally, but he used to be on No Jumper. So I would see him on No Jumper a lot, right? Cool. Love his commentary on a bunch of different things. But in this clip, he was upset about the lack of Mexican rap representation in Kendrick Lamar's pop-out show. Can we get the audio, please?
The Mexican people were underrepresented there last night.
I feel it. I can see that.
I can see that too, man. And a lot of people are telling me that I sound like bitter or something. Like, I'm not a rapper, fool. I'm not tripping about not being on stage. I'm saying, like, Jeezy performed, I think, last night.
Yeah.
Did he? That would have been nice if he would have been on stage. If he would have. Now, maybe the young legend had something to do, so he dipped.
Right, because all the artists that did perform were up there.
I respect it. Who was up there? I can't keep counting.
There was a lot of people that went, but I think Jeezy was the only
person that didn't pop out? Or were you going to say he's the only Mexican that performed?
Both.
Did he perform? Was he supposed to perform?
He did perform, yeah.
He did perform?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see him perform because I caught it late.
I saw the clip.
I saw
I didn't even see that
a
clip.
picture of someone posting that he performed.
Do you think it had something to do with it being Juneteenth?
I don't understand. I thought Juneteenth was like on the 16th or something like that. It's on June 19th.
It was Juneteenth yesterday.
Yeah, it was Juneteenth. Thanks.
I respect it.
Do you think that had something to do with it?
Had something to do with what? The fact that they threw the show that day? Or that there were no Mexicans on stage?
There you go. Do you think it was supposed to be like...
First of all, let me start off by saying congratulations to Kendrick Lamar and all of the wonderful individuals that performed last night.
Yeah, shut him up.
So I'm not trying to go racial with it, but I will say...
Oh, we're just picking each other's brains apart.
Although it was Juneteenth, and I believe that's in remembrance of the massacre. I don't want to be wrong, but is it in Tulsa or in Selma
I don't even know.
or a place over there. I could be wrong, and I hate to be wrong, but I know it's in remembrance of a massacre that took place, right? I'd like to say that the Mexican people have been persecuted in this wonderful land for a long, long, long time.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing about respect. I get what he was talking about. He was talking about Kendrick Lamar's celebration at the Juneteenth in L.A., where he again dissed Dre again, but it was a big celebration where all the people in L.A. came together. They had a good time, so on and so forth. It's Juneteenth. It was really about black culture. There, he was talking about a guy named Jeezy Up or something like that. I don't know exactly what his name is because I don't know all the rappers. Anyway, that young man was there at the rally. He was a Mexican person. He was on stage. I don't know much about LA culture. I live in Alabama. I know that there is some interaction because black people and Mexicans live in the same communities, have lived in, both of them have basically been in poverty or working class people in LA for years. They work together, their wealth together, but there's also been some clashes, and there's cultural clashes, right? So for some reason, the Mexicans here felt like they have to be represented, and I get it, but this is where I come in, where I tell you sometimes that we understand that there is a black and brown coalition, but there's sometimes that you got to understand the culture. Everybody's got their own culture. Like, the French have their culture, and the English have their culture, the Spanish have their culture, black people have their culture. And yeah, we have people who have attached themselves to our culture and become a part of our culture, but it's still our culture. Like how white people getting upset about Beyonce coming into country music, and they feel like, oh, this is an invasion of their art form. Yeah, okay. Well, we have white R&B singers too, right? So we have people who cross over. But black people are always, seems like when we hear this, there's a lot of negativity towards black people having their own anything. Black History Month, all you hear is negativity. Why there's got to be a Black History Month? Why is there got to be a Black History Month? And I say this, so why is there a Jewish Heritage Month? Why is there an Irish Heritage Month and also St. Patrick's Day? There is a Native American month. There is a Latino American month. There's a month dedicated to every person in the world, but I never hear anything about those months. There's even an Asian History Month, Women's History Month. But the only thing I ever hear about is a problem with Black History Month. Why? Well, isn't it a part of white history? Yeah, but it's like an emphasis for us to hear about our culture and the things that happen with us. Juneteenth is the same way. It's a historical day. We don't mind if other people come and celebrate. We don't mind if they have a celebration of it. But don't have... Here's the thing. And I have to talk about this, and I'm going to bring this up quick. When people come to America, they try their hardest to be American and of what they think American is. And the Mexicans here in America, they have a long history in America because there were Mexicans here in places like Texas and California when those places became part of the United States. So they've been citizens here forever. So they're suffering a different kind of discrimination than the people who have immigrated here. And their feeling is different than the ones who immigrate here. They've always been a part of the United States, but they've always been discriminated against because their language is different, their culture is different, they look different. They haven't tried to be more American. They were already here. So, they call it Dahino culture. Dahino people, they were already here. Kind of like us black folks who were brought over here, and now we're forced to kind of live in the culture away from the languages we knew, away from the culture we knew. We formed here in the United States, we formed our own culture because we weren't exactly accepted into white culture. We were treated as chattel, as property. We didn't have the freedom to move around and do other things, but we bought things with us, our food, our music, and our abilities that we bought from where we came from, and those became part of our culture, our art, and everything like that, right? Same with these groups of people. So then there's the immigrant sect. But again, cultures clash. Even when there's these so-called coalitions. So you say, what do you mean by cultures clash? So there's always a misunderstanding of cultures. This guy, I believe his name is DJ Icon. The biggest issue here was a sort of a big disrespect. If you're going to get on a podcast or radio, it might be a good idea to understand the history of a group of people. I try to understand the history of different groups of people. I study history. I don't know everything about Mexican culture, so I don't bring up things like Cinco de Mayo or other holidays that they may celebrate that we don't celebrate. Even Catholicism, I was Catholic. The way that people in Mexico celebrate Catholicism, and another thing that I've heard about in Latino culture, and I'm not sure this is practiced everywhere, is Day of the Dead, is different than what I would do in my culture, in our culture here in America, or as a black person in America, right? So we sometimes share commonalities like rap music. So there's rappers, but Juneteenth was specifically a holiday geared towards black people, black culture, because of the shared dynamic of ancestry of slavery, right? And this man didn't even know anything about the holiday. He didn't even know the history of the holiday. He just assumed, well, we're part of you because of Juneteenth. That should be us too. We know we're suffering. Everything is not about suffering the way you think it is. And from where we came, this was about where we came from. So this was kind of an insult to black people because it's not an understanding of our culture, an understanding of our own culture. And there's nothing wrong with having people come and celebrate your culture with you. But when it's a celebration about you, don't always expect to be included unless it's about you. You know, when we celebrate 4th of July, we celebrate everybody. Black History Month, we celebrate all black people. Should we celebrate Mexicans and other people because it's Black History Month? We're talking about black history. And it's not to be discriminatory, but it's honoring black people. Juneteenth honors the suffering that our ancestors went through in slavery and the freedom they obtained in 1865. And so that's basically what Kendrick Lamar was doing. So to say this was about LA culture, because the media kind of portrayed it as about LA culture. It's not about LA culture. It was about black culture. That's what that whole thing was really about. And I'm going to move on from there because that's not the only video I want to show you. Let's talk about another individual. Valentina Gomez is a 23-year-old child of immigrants. She describes herself as a real estate investor, financier, strategist, and former Division I NCAA swimmer for Tulane. Apparently, she was an Olympic swimmer because she's not in the Olympics. She is one of 7 Republicans vying to take the place of current Secretary of State and gubernatorial candidate Jay Ashcroft. Gomez is running for campaign focused on the Secretary of State budget, removing electronic voting machines, and going back to hand-counting championing capitalism. Restoring public confidence by decentralizing voting accessibility for the elderly in rural areas. Oh, yeah. This is what she's famous for. She has recently gained notoriety for her videos. In one of her videos, she is jogging through an LGBT community while saying, in America, you can be what you want, so don't be weak and gay. Stay effing hard. Effing hard. That's what she said. She also says there should be a mass deportation of illegal immigrants, but her last video, the one that I'm about to show you, takes the cake.
Reparations reparations from slavery and black victimization is about to be shoved down our throats for the most wretched holiday in America. BLM raised millions, but what did they do for black lives? It is outrageous to see people asking for reparations even though they never went through slavery. These ungrateful people should be celebrated because they were born in the greatest nation to ever exist. Here's a tip. If you don't like America, kind of get the fuck out.
Now, that's one thing you can learn from watching this video. Miss Gomez suffers from a particular syndrome that is, other than racism, that's a disease she's caught. She comes from a family of immigrants. One thing that they do is they want to come to America and they want to become as American as possible. What does that mean when you become American as possible? You can see this often in the second generation of families of people trying to figure out how they're going to do it. Vivek Ramamsway. Just listen to him when he talks. He talks about being more patriotic and being about what makes a citizen. All of a sudden, he's becoming this expert on being a citizen, and he's like second generation as a citizen of the United States. Same with Miss Gomez. She's first generation here in the United States. Maybe she may have even immigrated here and became a citizen of the United States. Doesn't matter, and that should never matter, to be honest with you. But what does matter is the fact that when these people immigrate, they oftentimes come with their own ignorances and issues. Now when they come to the United States, you want to be the model citizen. You want to be the model immigrant. So what do? You adapt certain things. I'm a patriot. We're free to have guns. We're free to do this. Maybe the culture she came from was a totalitarian government. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. But their parents came here for a reason, and her parents worked hard. So then she thinks that she's achieved. Therefore, she gets this sort of narcissistic mentality that all other people, whatever culture they belong to, the reason they're failing is because they're just not working hard enough, right? So black people celebrate their suffering. They talk about reparations and things they need to help them generate for it, because Ms. Gomez knows nothing about the real suffering of black people or the decades of discrimination that have happened. She's talking about something that happened in the past. She's talking about slavery, which means she also does not really understand Juneteenth or the history thereafter Juneteenth. That we're only 50 years removed from the last vestiges of Jim Crow in the United States. And it's not even the last vestiges, because the last vestiges are still existing today in housing and banking and economics and even in education. Those scars are still there, and that's still causing a problem for black progress in the United States. But Miss Gomez doesn't understand that at all. Miss Gomez is too busy trying to become American, so she's adapted the neo-Nazi, Nazi, Ku Klux Klan version of American life, the white Christian nationalist version of America that really doesn't exist. And this is not to insult all white people, just to insult those who belong to this particular brand of thought. She has decided this makes her more American than everybody else. She's putting down all the other minorities to show that she is the model minority. And that sounds like a terrible thing to say about an individual, but what she's doing is exactly that. And at the same time, she also goes after other groups, which we call marginalized groups, because you got to show them that you're not a part of the marginalized groups. You're part of the main group. She goes after the LGBTQ community as well. Again, like I said, we are in strange bedfellows with people we should be calling allies. Not everyone who's a member of the Latino community is an ally. In fact, there are a large percentage of Latinos who are going to vote Republican in the next election, just as there are some black males who have decided they're going to vote Republican. Not everyone is your ally. That's the first lesson you must learn. And then the word ally is different than someone who is your friend or someone who is your family member. allyship does not always mean that you totally agree, and there are borders. America belongs to NATO. There are several different countries that speak several different languages that are a part of NATO. Their cultures are even different, but they share a common goal of their enemy is Russia. So they have a common goal. They share common military values, and they do things like that. They all have democracies. There are certain things that they all share, but at the same time, there are things that they compete for, like economics. Same with other cultures in America. And Gomez and the other gentleman, DJ Icon, are no different than that. They are from other cultures. Now, their stories are different because DJ Icon feels like his suffering should be part of black suffering, even though this particular suffering that he's talking about is not the same. That he knows we're not slaves of white men, whereas black men were slaves of white men. And that's a different story than the one that he comes from. They may have been discriminated against, prejudice. Theirs could be to the level of what happened to us after Jim Crow, when or not after Jim Crow, but after slavery, where discrimination came in and it was separation of black and other races. That would be more on the level on which they understand, but they don't understand that other level. Now, I've said what I had to say about these two today. I want to hear what you've got to say. So please make sure you leave a like, a share, and go ahead and comment below. I will make sure I respond either by a video or right there on the comments below. But you guys have a peaceful, wonderful day. Bye for now.
You have been listening to Thought You Were Woke No Speed Limit Podcast.